I'm going to show you how I built this shipping container home for less money than most people pay for 2 or 3 months on their mortgage. On the outside, it just looks like a regular shipping container, which I've done intentionally because of some specific reasons we have here. I'll show you what I've done on the inside. I have the interior walls and ceilings mostly finished. Just have to do a little bit of trim around the doors. I still need to put some siding around these doors, cover up the wood, make sure everything's weatherproof. And on this side, this utility wall, I'm gonna have to do some modifications for heating, utilities. So I'm holding off on finishing the trim. And I need to put a piece of trim here to cover up this gap. The reason I have a gap there, it's one of those simple cases of oops. It's all a result of one of those ideas that seemed like a good idea at the time, but that time has long passed. And the floor that came with the container is not bad at all. I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. I have some other possible ideas I might do later. The walls are all Douglas fir, unfinished. This is just it in its naturalness. Douglas fir is mostly used in places where you need strength, like construction, framing, heavy use. But I've been saying for a long time, I think Douglas fir is underrated for its appearance. Where did I get all of this wood? I made all the wood, all by myself. Okay, I didn't actually make the wood, the trees made the wood, but I'll show you the story of how I got the wood. It all started when I had some Douglas fir trees die. I got out the trusty old chainsaw, made them fall down and go boom. Then I had more that were mostly dead. Since they're only mostly dead, that means they are still slightly alive. But since I don't have a magic pill to give them, I'm going to give them the only treatment I know, which is to make them fall down and go boom. That's the story of how I ended up with a bunch of rough sawn lumber, which was just fine for the framing. I used conventional 2x4 stud framing, batt insulation. Batt insulation is not always a good choice for shipping containers. In previous videos, I've mentioned why I think batt insulation will be just fine in this case. When it comes to appearance, rough sawn lumber is fine for outdoor projects or something where you want a rustic look. This was more rustic than I wanted for the interior. Rough sawn can be uneven, especially after it dries and moves. Okay, maybe not the best example. These ones are fitting together quite well. And it has all this slivery stuff that can give you slivers. It makes a mess. It collects dust. Rough sawn on the interior is not what I wanted, so after letting them dry over the summer, I took them to a local wood molding company. When I brought them back, I had these nice, smooth, planed, and edged boards. No slivers, no fuzz. Precision milled to be straight, uniform in size. They fit together nicely. These turned out so nice, straight, precise. It was really enjoyable working with these boards. Yeah, I know most people don't have access to the ability to make their own lumber. But that's probably a good thing. When I figure the cost of all my time to make that lumber, it would be cheaper to go to the store and just buy it. at least for the framing material. A lot of people think lumber is expensive. Some lumber is expensive. The cost of framing lumber is down, especially when you factor in inflation. I figured out if you had to buy everything to do this, it would cost about $6,300 for everything, including the wood and the container. To buy a new 20-foot double door container like this one, our local dealer has them now for about $4,300. But if you want to go to a single door used one and modify it, you can get that for considerably less. If you were to buy the wood to do the walls the way I did, that would cost more because that kind of lumber is expensive. But there are much cheaper ways you could do the interior walls, like drywall or those manufactured wood panels they have at Lowe's and Home Depot. I thought about doing those panels. It would be a lot cheaper, a lot easier, faster, but they kind of smell funny, so I didn't do that. And if you want to be resourceful or creative, I've seen cases where people have found some really nice wood, either cheap or free. A big part of the cost was buying these doors new. But if you want to go used, you could probably find doors for a lot less than what I paid for these. I didn't have to pay for any of this wood except for the OSB on both sides and pay to have that wood planed. The $6,300 would be if you had to buy everything, including the wood, for the frame and reasonably priced interior walls. I've looked at a lot of tiny houses. Some of them are amazing, but then I see how much people paid for them and I think, what's the point of having a tiny house if you're paying that much for it? You might as well just get a regular house. But with this, I'm going to continue my theme of simple, functional. By the time I finish the interior with all the comforts and conveniences, this is going to cost less than what most people pay for just a few months of rent or mortgage. If you want to do the interior walls the way I did, that's probably going to cost you more, unless you happen to have the ability to make your own lumber. I know that's not practical for most people, but when I look at the price that a lot of people pay for their tiny homes, if instead of paying that much money, you build it in a very simple way that doesn't cost you that ridiculous amount of money, you could instead take that money, buy a sawmill and an old tractor, the chainsaws and all the equipment you need, and in some parts of the country where land is still relatively cheap, you could probably buy a little piece of land with some trees on it, cut your own lumber. Or you could just go to the lumber store and buy the framing for $150. That's probably the better way to go. Unless, of course, you want to have all this stuff. You can't overlook the potential recreational opportunities things like these have to offer. Which reminds me, in my calculations on dollar cost, I didn't factor in labor. But that can sometimes be the nature of DIY. Some people want to build their own, something they're going to enjoy doing in their free time. But if it's something that's going to take you from productive time, time making money, or doing something somewhere else, factoring in your time is something to consider. But if it's just going to take someone's time away from otherwise watching TV or scrolling on Facebook, how much value did that time have anyway? And if you keep things really simple, it doesn't take a whole lot of labor to build just a cozy cabin in the woods. But it's so small. That's where the word cozy comes in. It takes a negative term like small and puts a positive spin on it. But mostly, that's where that container comes in, and possibly a third one too. I'm going to combine them. How am I going to do that? I don't know. I'm just figuring this out as I go along. I don't have anything pre-planned, but one way or another, I'm going to combine them. Okay, I do have an idea of how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to save that until I confirm that it's a good idea. Why am I building this in such a strange, goofy way with the 20-foot containers and the double doors, only putting windows on each end? I'm glad you asked, because I just happened to have a video about why I did that. I'll put that up here somewhere, and maybe I'll put another one up here too, maybe the one about why I chose batt insulation for this one instead of spray foam. If that's not up there, the one that is up there should lead you right to it. Unless I forget to put them up there at all, which I sometimes do. In that case, there won't be anything up there. You'll have to go search on my channel and find them. But hopefully, I'll remember. If you want to know how I installed all the wood in this one, stay tuned because I have this one to do, which I will probably make a video about, unless I decide not to. In that case, there won't be one. Now it's getting windy. I think a storm's blowing in.